out there per se. For example, the grass cutting and snow plowing, we're trying to get those to be more reflective of what is actually happening. So there'll be adjustments within the next budget presentation. Another item within the 2024 budget proposal tonight is the assessment loss due to TIA's tax incentive programs for the farmland property transactions. Those impact any farm transactions that have been conducted throughout the year. They automatically revert back to residential tax class, and then it's on the new owner to file their paperwork with Agricor to qualify for the program. Then it gets sent to MPAC, and then it gets sent to us as they're approved for the program, and we adjust the taxes accordingly. This causes a big lag. It'll show that we have a lot of residential assessment, which gets reversed into farmland assessment. And at the time of the report, we were at a loss of $44,000. I'm happy to report, though, as of November 9th, we are at 101,000 growth. So that is good, and that equates to a 1.02% for the general levy. So then the next steps for the draft 2024 budget would be for staff to review prior to the next budget advisory committee meeting in December, and that would be the CAO, treasurer, and department managers would review their budgets. And this will allow for the incorporation of the capital portion of the budgets to review it as well. And the final thing for staff to ensure is the allocation of 60% of the development charges and parkland reserves to be in compliance with Bill 23. Outstanding issues outside of the township staff are, there's some grant allocations that we have not received yet. They're anticipated in the fall, so anytime now. And that is the Canada Community Building Fund, which is the former federal gas tax, as well as the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund formula-based funding, which is the OCIF. So in the draft proposed tonight, the Community Building Fund has been frozen at 2023 rates, assuming funding should stay stable. The OCIF has been included at a 15% reduction because that is the worst case scenario that we can incur for that grant funding. Hopefully it isn't that bad. Hopefully we go up 15%. Outstanding external information that we're waiting for are the two conservation authorities. We're waiting for their budgets, the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. So once those are received, they'll be incorporated into the next draft. At the time of the report, the 2024 budget from the Milverton Beautification Committee hadn't been received. It has since been received and is part of the adjustments that I'll discuss in the slideshow tonight. The updated 2024 taxation assessment rule is anticipated at the beginning of December, and that will be used to calculate the tax rates for 2024. Then the only other outstanding pending information is the final actual growth for 2023 numbers outside of the preliminary 101,000 that we have right now. So the draft budget highlights the 3-year phase-in plan from the contingency reserve to stabilize property taxation has been completed in 2023. So that is no longer incorporated into the budget. And then in the 2024 draft budget, the Community Investment Reserve Fund has been returned to pre-COVID levels of just under $60,000. Then in the report, I have various sections that'll break it down by revenue, expenses, and transfers so that you can see the difference in the increases or decreases in those areas with a little bit of a explanation of what that constitutes. And then just to note where we are, the 5.63 CPI on the salary grid included an increase of $404,000, and that's equal to 4.05 general tax levy. Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, the assessments values for the properties have been frozen again for the 2024 taxation year. And I'll just note for council's reference as well, we're still valued at January 1, 2016 values. And then once the 2024 education and Perth County rates are announced, they will be incorporated into our tax bylaw, and the Budget Advisory Committee and council will be advised as they are received. So the 2024 draft budget proposed tonight, at the time of the report, had a levy increase of $578,193, or a total of 5.79% levy increase. Now, this has changed due to that assessment loss being changed to a growth now, and those numbers are a levy increase of $536,725 with a pre-growth levy rate increase of 5.38% and after growth of 4.36%. Now, I caution the advisory committee that these numbers could change based on capital projects brought forward, as well as reserve activity. So that concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thanks for that detailed report, Paula. Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none? Great, I need a motion to receive the report, budget methodology and highlights dated November 14th, prepared by the treasurer for information. Mover, Jeremy, seconded by Hugh. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next one we'll turn over to Mike, and that's the 2024 budget vision update. Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Yeah, just really quickly as it relates to the report, you'll see later on that Jake has provided more detail as it relates to some of the specific highlights that came out of the budget visioning. Most of them were public works driven. The one item I would like to highlight in this report is the development charges bylaw and the intent of staff. Just to reiterate, our intent as it relates to completion of the comprehensive review and the official plan update would then, allow us to look more forward at the 25-year kind of growth implications as associated with the official plan and the urban boundaries, and that would allow us to then update master plans for the servicing required to serve that growth, and that would lead into updating the development charges to ensure that we're collecting growth, paying for growth, as much as the development being covered by development charges as allowed through legislation. So I wanted to highlight that portion, but the other items identified through budget visioning will come in a later report from Jake. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'll need a motion that the Township of Perth East Advisory Committee receive a report entitled 2024 Budget Vision Update dated November 14th, prepared by the CAO for information. Need a mover, Rhonda, seconded by Andrew. Any comments or questions? All in favor? That one's carried. Next one is also Mike, and it's the 2024 budget, public budget survey results. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just as it relates to the survey itself, I think it was positive that the number of responses increased fairly significantly year over year. So I think that's trending in the right direction. 68 responses is yeah, certainly better than 19. I do caution that it is 68, so it's not a majority of our residents participating, but I do think it is valuable information for the committee to hear. A couple of things from the survey. It's when we're talking about service levels, I don't think it's too surprising, but there tends to be, if increasing of service levels tends to lead towards public works, fire, police, and recreation. So I think, yeah, people are looking at service level increases or considering those are the departments, I guess, that I would say, or the service areas that they tend to lean towards. And it was somewhat interesting. I think that Stratford Perth Museum and the Stratford Perth Archives are services that the majority of our residents would lean towards reducing services for. So I leave that with our representatives on county to maybe consider going forward. And then we added a question this year as it related to kind of the growth aspect. And I think, you know, there were some great responses and some guidance, I think, that for all of us to understand, but I think the consensus is that we need to plan for the growth to make it best as possible and to ensure that it's growth that fits within our confines and within our community, and that growth needing to pay for growth is the continued message that we're hearing from our residents. So, but yeah, happy to answer any other questions that may come out of the report.
Thanks, Mike. As we get more respondents, we get more comments. A lot of very different ones there. Any questions here? Andrew?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Sorry, not much of a comment really, and I'm sure everybody saw some of the comments, and there was a few that jumped out, the apartment stuff. So I thought, well, I'm going to figure this out, right? I'm not going to get staff time. So I looked at on the local website, Perth County, whatever rentals. And it was, I took 15 across the cat because there's nothing specific to Perth East. So the average is just over $2,000, about $2,300 for a room. That was kind of the average. There's $5,000 ones and there was like $1,500 ones. Mike, so I'm just wondering, the message that I kind of locked in my brain was with the new living wage at $22.75. This will leave somebody, even with apartments, which were asked for during the survey, $300 a month to car, food, and, you know, beer or whatever, right? So I'm just wondering how that message is, how apartments is the message. Is that something that higher levels of government are pushing? I just don't see that that's an answer, right? I don't know if the answer is within our realm, that we can build all the apartment buildings we want, but it doesn't look like anybody's going to be able to afford them and have a gainful life in it. So that's kind of concerning.
Yep. Got a response for us, Mike?
Yeah, what you're seeing, Councillor McAlpine, is yeah, not unique. And I think the entire conversation, you know, the province has put a lot of focus on creating more housing. And so that's a supply factor. That's one issue. But I think the whole piece around attainable housing is something that we're all struggling with. And your comment around apartments is, yeah, amongst our staff, I had a conversation today. There's one listing in Perth East right now, and the month before there was one other listing. One was at $2,200 a month, and one was at $900 a month. So you can see kind of the swings and the lack of availability as it relates to rental properties here. So I do think, in particular, for us, one of the things when we get to our development charges is incenting, and sometimes incenting means waiving fees to get the type of development that we want. So I will encourage council that when we get to that point, that those are the things that we have some levers that we can utilize to make sure the type of housing and it is what it is that we have identified as the needs within Perth East. So yeah, it's the whole idea of rentals. Yeah, there really isn't a market. It just doesn't exist. And how do people get into the housing market without starting with rentals is really a challenge that I think that's something that we'll give some thought to and try to be creative, in particular when we look at our own zoning bylaw and our development charges.
Go ahead, Andrew.
No, thanks. That kind of leads into my second question was, for the development charges and the growth pays for growth, is there any levers that municipalities can pull to make sure that money is actually transferred? I know that supply and demand eventually in 5-10 years will take over, but I'm not sure whether that's timely enough. Moving ahead, is there any levers that can be pulled by municipalities to make sure that money gets passed on to the renters and home buyers?
It's a great question, and certainly something I think we all struggle with, in that yeah, we recognize that there's a business model that exists for development, but we want to make sure that any savings that we provide at the municipal level does end up with the actual purchasers. And is there any assurances around that? No, there are not, I guess is my short answer.
Okay, any other comments, questions? One from Bob, go ahead.
So getting some feedback is great. I think that maybe this survey can evolve a little bit more so that we can also provide some information to people about what their taxes are spent on, and maybe you can compartmentalize the county and Perth East rather than what it looks like to me, some people assuming we're involved in lots of things we aren't. I know the county is, but maybe we could break down the pie graph a little more targeted for what Perth East is and where those dollars go. I think that reflects some of the comments, and so maybe we can continue to build on some feedback years to come.
Yeah, appreciate that, Councilor McMillan. I think we did have some success in trying to share information based on feedback that we got with last year's survey. So I agree with you. I think we're going to try to continue to evolve and share information about responsibilities, breakdown of budgets, because yeah, we do get some good questions. So yeah, sharing that information. It was pretty well received. We included some of that data in the report as well, because I thought it was important for council to know that we're not just asking kind of general questions about the budget. We're trying to educate kind of at the same time. So yeah, we will try to continue to evolve.
Great, thanks everyone. Seeing no more questions, the Township Perth East Budget Advisory Committee received the report entitled 2024 Public Budget Survey Results dated November 14th, 2023. Is that 23 or 24? 23. Hello. Prepared by the CAO for information. Need a mover? Someone move that for information. Rhonda, seconded by Hugh. All in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, now moving on, the 2024 one-time request list. Is this for Paula? Yep, good stuff. Go ahead, Paula. 8.4.1.
Thank you. You can see that there is a list of the one-time requests included here, as well as detail on any of the requests that are over $5,000. So if there's any further detail wanted, I'll be happy to answer or rely on my colleagues, department managers.
Yep, any comments, questions on the one-time requests? Andrew?
Thank you, Chair Smith. I'm just wondering about I wonder if the library can help with these robot set for STEM programming. I know what robots are. I know what STEM is. I'm just not sure how it fits in. What you guys, how you can use it with the library?
Yeah, so we have had a lot of success with our summer reading program. It's pretty standard for a lot of libraries to have STEM equipment for programming, especially for youth. And our current set is getting older, and I would like to get some new tech in for our summer programming and outreach throughout the year, and build that capacity to continue providing these types of programs.
Good.
Thanks. I'll have to come and take a look.
Hugh?
Just wondering why the new bus for Knoll Crest is done through donations and not Public Works? Like, is it because we don't own or run the bus?
Through you, Chair. The bus for the 18-passenger bus replacement is done through the Perth East Transportation Program, which is funded by the provincial gas tax.
Thank you. Any other questions? One-time request. Well, thanks, Paul. Shall we go through each one then, or we got 8.4.2, the fire protection?
So the first request here under fire is for the increased training hours for the NFPA 1001 program. And this will cover to bring all of the firefighters up to the new OREG 343, I believe it is. Yes, 343.
Okay. The next one, the Shakespeare Reflective Stripping Rescue 68.
So this next request is to replace the reflective striping on the Rescue 68 truck. And the existing striping reflectivity has deteriorated to a point that the vehicle is unsafe and it's due to be replaced.
Thank you. See nothing, on to the arena roof.
So this request from PERC is to address and evaluate the arena roof inspection, and that will address any existing problems that are unknown to prevent further damage, as well as identify any weaknesses or damages within the roof.
Okay, no questions there. And the next one is the 18-passenger bus, that we've had a couple comments, questions on that one. And there's a letter there from the outreach manager explaining the request there.
So this was just the request that came in from Noelcrest, who operates the Perth East Transportation Program for us. And the 2016 bus was due to be replaced during COVID. So now they're trying to get that replaced, and then there'll be another one coming shortly after, probably in the 2025 budget.
Great. Okay, thanks, Paula. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, 8.4.1 to 8.45. Any other further questions? We just need to, that those items as set out in the one-time request for the November 14th meeting of the Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Need someone to move that? Bob, seconded by Jeremy. Any more comments, questions? All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Paula. Okay, a couple service level requests. Sorry, one, right? Yeah. The mobile data plan.
So there is a list summarizing the service level request proposed in the 2024 draft budget. None of these items reached the limit of $5,000 to include a report. However, the fire chief chose to include a report on his mobile data plans. And if there's any further questions on that, I'd maybe refer to his expertise.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions on that one? Seeing none. Got a motion that items 5.8.5.1 into 8.5.2 set out in the service level requests for the November 14, 2023 Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. I'll mover for that one. Hugh, seconded by Bob. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Good stuff, thank you. Oh, fun stuff. PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. So we're getting into the good stuff for tonight. What everybody waits for is the much awaited slideshow. So for tonight, the 2024 draft budget, I didn't have any submitted questions prior to the meeting. So there's nothing on that slide. So the next slide shows that the adjustments after the report was submitted or released in the agenda. So there was some minor changes. The library changes here, there's still a work in progress, but this is where we are as of now. There were some changes to the salaries and wages in the PCIN contract, as well as transfers to reserves and the requirement from the township grant. The next adjustment is for the Milverton Beautification Committee, and that was included in the draft budget that went out to the committee at adding the CPI to the 2023 numbers, and their budget came in $334 under that. So that has been adjusted, and the gravel pit area, that is a balance to zero area, and there was a change that got through that I missed before the draft went out, and there was an adjustment for $37 to balance that back to zero. sorry. So then the final adjustments were within the building department, a 553 adjustment. That is very similar to the gravel pit adjustments. Something got through before I realized it and the agenda went out. So I've adjusted that to 0, as well as the West Perth Fire Services. There's a $27 balance that needed to be adjusted on that one. And that was the end for the adjustments to date, since it was submitted in the agenda. Now we're on to the general government budgets for the 2024 proposed draft. Grants and other revenues, and this relates to our department level page PE-81. The base budget is $10,310,728, and this increase is budgeted property tax supplementals and a transfer to the corporate asset reserves per the asset management plan. That is a change of $543,217 from 2023 with a percentage change of 5.56. On to council, and that relates to PE 81 and PE 82. The base budget is $239,265 for 2024. And this included market adjustment to honorariums, as well as the salaries, the honorariums and increased training related to the expenses for the bringing those back to pre-COVID level for training. So the dollar change is $12,411 with a percent change of 5.47%. To the CAO budget, the base budget is $518,179. This includes wages adjusted for grade and level changes throughout the year for staff, as well as a continuation of the multi-year land title project, and that is funded from reserves, $17,000. And then the service level change, which is funded from reserves, so they're showing a 0. And that was an increase in legal fees to be funded from the legal fee reserve in the amount of $16,730. So the dollar change for the CAO department is $45,675 with a percent change of 9.67. Donations and assistance. The base budget is $57,143. And this includes carry forward projects from 2023, which will be adjusted once year-end numbers are in to actual numbers. The union gas contribution continues until 2027, and that's in the amount of $41,000. And the transfer to community investment reserve has been returned to the pre-COVID levels of $59,967, as well as the Perth East transportation replacement. The 2016-18 passenger bus has been funded from reserves in the amount of $203,000, from the provincial gas tax funding. So this is a decrease in $24,357 with a percent change of 29.89%. Now this is one area that could change based on those carry forwards, and that would be for the All Wheels Park and the Lyle Yost project at the park. Administration building, base budget is $40,853, and this includes security system increase, which were offset by hydro reductions. And then facilities maintenance coordinator allocations are being reviewed to accurately reflect the time spent on the building. So the dollar change for the administration building is a decrease of $5,734, or a decrease of 12.31%. The clerk's department, there's a base budget of $365,499. This includes publication costs that have been decreased related to the community guide changes. And then there's various line items that have been adjusted closer to actuals, for example, advertising, mileage, memberships, etc. And then there was the one-time request where we removed the advertising revenue related to the community guide. And we put that in a one-time request as we're doing that as a trial, so we didn't want to miss adjusting that possibly in the 2025 budget. The dollar change in the clerk's department is $11,221, or a 3.13% increase.
Sorry, Paul, I'm gonna take you back if you can to the
Yep.
grants quickly you mentioned the All Wheels Park.
Yep,
So the project's complete, but yet we've added the CPI.
yeah, those need to be adjusted.
That's what you spoke
Yeah,
about, the
yeah.
adjustment. Okay, so that's 14,000, that's
Yeah.
$15,000.
Because basically what I looked at on that, Chair Smith, was that they zeroed out with the revenues. So it was a net zero impact to the 2024 budget, but those actual numbers have to be put in there
Okay,
when we
thank
have
you.
it reconciled. So on to the finance department. $775,137 is the base budget. And this includes an insurance estimate increase at 7%. And that 7% increase in insurance is estimated across the board. So anybody that has insurance allocated to that department, it's budgeted at a 7% increase. There's an estimated low-risk user event insurance reconciliation for the 2023 numbers. I've estimated that at $43,000, funded partially from the insurance reserve of $10,500. The remaining portion of the $43,000 would be on the tax levy. Now that $43,000 could be less. I'm thinking it's maybe going to be closer to 30, 35. Based on new numbers that we're looking at, but it's still going to be a high number. So the change in finance, the dollar change is $40,711 increase, or a 5.54% increase. So now we're into recreation and cultural services budgets. The arena has a base budget of $442,332. This includes heat and hydro and utility increases. They have been increased to the anticipated amount, so it doesn't include the 5.63% based on the 2023 budget. However, we've looked at 2023 projected numbers and have increased 7% on those. There's the $10,000 one-time request for the arena roof inspection for an increase of $49,911, or a 12.4% increase. The banquet hall operations, there's a base budget of $182,829. This includes waste disposal costs have increased, and these costs have increased 46.5%, and that is returning to pre-COVID numbers. So the heat, hydro, and utilities and fuel have increased as well based on the projected anticipated 2023 numbers. Heat and hydro have been estimated at a 7% increase, and utilities a 5% increase. So the dollar increase for the banquet hall operations is $12,878, or equates to a 7.58% increase. The bar at the hall has a base budget revenue of $7,259, and this includes wages and benefit allocation adjustments. And that compares to a 2023 revenue of $7,562 for a change of $303, or a 4.01% increase. The pool has a base budget of $99,647, and this includes an increase for chlorine costs, as well as the registrations have increased for the Junior Lifeguard Club and the Bronze course, so that increases our supply costs for those programs. The dollar change for the pool is an $888 increase, or a 0.9% increase. Parks has a base budget of $52,241, and this was includes increased grass cutting wages, and this is season dependent. As we all know, this year was a good year for grass cutting. We had high numbers on the grass cutting wages, and then the insurance is increased, estimated at 7%. So for the parks, the dollar increase is $2,209, and it equates to a 4.42% increase. Perth East Library, at the time of the report, this doesn't incorporate the changes that were made because there's still changes being pending. The base budget is $363,355, and this includes video and audio increase for the PCIN shared database subscription. And then there's the one-time request, which includes the robot set for the STEM programming of $3,000, as well as additional display and bookends for $500, for a total 2024 proposed budget of $366,855, which is a $19,553 increase from 2023, or a 5.63% increase. Perth East Recreation has a base budget of $103,816, and this includes Youth Action Council increase for program returning to pre-COVID levels, advertising increase to reflect the 2-year average, which will reflect more actual because of the COVID shutdown, so we used a 2-year average for that. And then there's reduced adult and senior program expenses, for a dollar change of $6,612, or a 6.8% increase. So on to protection services budgets. We have the emergency planning, and there's a base budget of $1,771 included in the 2024 draft budget. And this is because a reduction of materials and supplies. So there's a reduction of $1,729, or a 49.4% decrease in emergency planning. Policing has a base budget of $1.469, $322. The OPP contract has increased $11,138, and we've added the Community Safety and Wellbeing Program at $15,000. So there's an increase in policing of $18,570, or a 1.28% increase. Crossing guards, there's a base budget of $8,681, and there's no changes to operation. This has an increase of $702, or an 8.8% increase. Animal control, there's a base budget of $13,125, and this includes wage allocation adjustments to reflect actual time spent on the animal licensing and control by staff. So there's an increase of $3,151, or a 31.6% increase. Weeds and fence viewers budgets, there's a base budget of $223, and this cost depends on the activity for requests for services. So if there's no requests, complaints that come in, we don't incur any costs. The 2024 budget is proposed with $176 increase, or a 44, oh, that didn't get updated. That percent change isn't right. It'll be a slight decrease on that. So yeah. Sorry, my numbers are wrong. It's 176 decrease, or a 44.11% decrease. So fire department central, there's a base budget of $631,636. And this relates to an increase in the EAP program, which is Employee Assistance Program for the firefighters. There's a $12 annual increase per firefighter. Then there's the one-time request for the NFPA training of $98,466. The dollar change from 2023 is $90,835, or an increase of 14.21%. Milverton Fire Station, the base budget $273,695, and this includes salary plan hours based on a 3-year average, so from 2020 to 2022, and then adjustments to heat, hydro, and utilities. And again, these were reflected to be based on the actual projected 2023 plus a 7 or 5% increase. There's the service change of $540 for the mobile data plan for Incident Commander. And this relates to a dollar increase of $10,219, or a 3.87% increase. Shakespeare Fire Station, the base budget is $231,781. This includes, again, the 3-year average for the salary plan and the adjustments to heat, hydro, and utilities. There's the one-time request of $6,500 for the reflective striping for the Rescue 68 vehicle, and then the service change increase for $540 for the mobile data plan for Incident Commander. And this has a change of a decrease of $71, or a 0.03% decrease. Sebringville Fire Station, a base budget of $242,890. And again, the same adjustments for the Milverton and Shakespeare, the salary plan for the 3-year average, heat and hydro. No utilities at Sebringville. There's a one-time request of $2,700 for Tanker 53 tire replacements, and then the service level change of $540 for the mobile data plan. This equates to a dollar increase of $8,893, or a 3.75% increase. West Perth Fire Services. This is a zero impact to the levy, as it's a cost recovery basis based on the agreement with West Perth. Expenditures are budgeted at $154,618, which is increased by the CPI, and it's funded by West Perth. Conservation authorities. Again, we've included the draft Grand River Conservation Authority budget, which has been received, and there's a base budget of $173,579. So for the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they have been included with a CPI of 5.63 on 2023 budgets, and they will be adjusted once budgets are received from the conservation authorities. So as it stands in the draft, it's a $7,402 increase, or a 4.45%. By law enforcement, there's a base budget of $47,263, and there's adjustments to the fine revenue to reflect the actuals anticipated for the year. And there is a decrease in expenditures of $921, or a decrease of 1.91%. The building department, this department is fully funded by the fees, so it's a user-paid department. The base budget is of $593,369. This includes proposed fee changes that'll be presented to council November 21st. And there's a full year wages for the second building inspector, so that's why there's a larger increase this year. The dollar increase for the building department is $103.792, or it equates to a 21.2% increase. So now we're moving on to transportation services budget. And the Public Works general budget, there's a base budget of $935,784. There's been wage allocations reviewed to reflect the actual activity, and this is an area where we're still analyzing and there could be a few more changes. And there's been no changes to operations within the budget. So the dollar change for 2024 proposed draft is a $19,224 decrease, or a 2.01% decrease. Roads general, the base budget is $4,327,571. And this relates to a reduction in the quantity of gravel for maintenance. There's increased fuel costs included, as well as increased maintenance and repair costs. And then there's increase to the municipal drain assessments. This area has increased dramatically, and it's being analyzed right now as a plan to go forward. I would like to, when I review the reserve policy, propose a possible new reserve for this municipal drains, because we're going from a $90,000 budget and we're $251 right now, included in the 2024 budget. So the dollar change for the roads general is $367,723, or a 9.29% increase. Streetlights, the base budget is $92,186, and this is the annual operating savings. So the annual operating savings above and beyond this are transferred to the unfunded LED project, so that will pay down the unfunded portion. And hopefully I want to say it was about 3 years, it would be paid in full at the rate we're going. So there's zero increase because any savings get transferred to the unfunded. The next is the gravel pits. The gravel pits, and this is a net zero impact to the levy as well. This is an area where it's self-funded. The net operations equal reserve transfers. So any surpluses within the gravel pits gets transferred to reserves and used for future projects. Storm sewers. Base budget of $17,881. There's no change to operations within storm sewers, and this reflects a $156 decrease from 2023, or a 0.86% decrease. On to environmental services budgets, and we have the waste management and landfill budgets. There's a base budget of $522,474. So the waste management is fully funded by fees and provincial recycling grants. The wheelie bin in 2023 is up from previous years, and it's projected to increase. That's due to the addition of additional residents requiring waste management services. And then we also have reduced contract fees within 2024 proposed budget. So there's a decrease of 116,866 proposed, or a decreased 18.28%.
Like, Rhonda has a question. Thanks, Paul.
Do we know when the government's taking over the waste management, some of the recycling? Isn't that supposed to happen?
Mike?
Yeah, so that is actually the basis for some of the reduction from the contract, in that, yeah, those services are now to be not being paid by municipalities, they're supposed to be paid otherwise. So this year is the first, 2024 year will be the first year. We've anticipated that based on conversations with our provider. I think I would be hesitant for council to count on that going beyond 2024. I think, and again, I think the intentions are right in terms of who's responsible for the costs associated with the recycling program. I just think that major industry has major resources, and they will find ways potentially for these costs to end up coming back to us. But we have taken, based on recommendations from Blue Water Recycling, that's what the changes this year is really related to the recycling program. And the increased residents too, that's also increased revenues there. So those are really the combination of those two factors.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a big reduction, but okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Paula.
So on to the health services budgets. This is our cemetery budgets. And there's a base budget of $5,153, and these are for operations for all of the township cemeteries. And this included increases to the grass cutting, and those are seasonal dependent. So there has been a decrease of $3,341, or 39.33% decrease. Then we're into the planning and development budgets, and the economic development budget has base budget of $6,759, and this is used towards marketing and purchasing of Canadian flags for township properties. There is a service adjustment of $2,500, and this is to fund and facilitate economic development projects such as EV chargers, possible bus promotions, or a CIP, etc. So there's a $2,402 increase from 2023 and a proposed increase of 35.03%. Milverton beautification was included at $9,084, which included the CPI increase, which has been adjusted to $87.50. And at the time of the report, it was $484 increase, or a 5.63%.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Milverton beautification, is that from the new policy, or have we seen that yet? I apologize. Is that from the new policy? Because I know the hydro money ran out or something last year, or is this the remainder of that, or?
Yes, through you, Chair Smith. This is the existing motion that was passed in the 2023 budget, that it would be funded from the Milverton Economic Reserve.
Thank you. And one from Rhonda, Paula.
Yep.
I'm just curious why they get CPI. They're not staff, they're not.
Yeah, I hadn't received the budget yet, so I just left it as a placeholder there.
But why would they get CPI?
The base budget that we roll over for everything includes a 5.63% increase on all lines.
Okay.
So, and sorry, what was that number that they're requesting?
They're requesting $8,750.
8,750, thank you.
Yeah, so it's an increase of $150 from last year. Planning Department has a base budget of $118,515, and this includes increased legal fees. We've noticed that legal fees have increased quite a bit, significantly over the last year, and there is a budgeted dollar increase of $13,652, or a 13.02% increase. Municipal and tile drainage, base budget of $73,795, and this is to cover the drainage superintendent costs for the township. There's an increase of $8,025, or a 12.2% increase. Source water protection, base budget of $21,851, and this is based on the proposed renewal with Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. A dollar increase of $2,171, or an 11.03% increase. Environmental services, the water and sewer budgets, these are user pay systems, fully funded from user pay fees. So the base budget is $707,834. There's no change to operations. Again, wage allocations have been adjusted, and there could be some more adjustments to come. And there has been an increase in materials and supplies for the water services. So there's a proposed $78,025 increase, or a 12.39% increase. The wastewater services has a base budget of $772,508. No change to operations. As well, there was the wage allocation adjustments within the wastewater department, and there's increased fuel costs, as well as the estimated increase, 7% increase for insurance. That's also in water. So there's a dollar increase of $57,472 within the wastewater, or an 8.04% increase. So now we're down to outstanding issues under the operations budget are the two Conservation Authority levies. The budgets we have not received as of yet. The education and county rates haven't been set as well. And then there's the outstanding wage allocation reviews.
Just if I could comment on that, the Upper Thames, my understanding is we've not received their memorandum of understanding, is that correct? And to me, their budget is tied to that, and I think we need to be really cautious before we pay them until we get that. So that's noted that, and no, we're not going to push it through. They are supposed to have it to us by the end of the year, and that's rapidly coming, so.
Good, thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you. So our next steps would be the December 12th meeting, which will be a continuation of any outstanding operation issues, as well as the main item of the capital budgets. There will also be discussion information on the reserves and debt position of the township. And then the next, following that, there will be a January 9th meeting, which would be a continuation of the capital if necessary. And then it's proposed that the January 25th meeting would be a review of the tax rates. And that is the slideshow for tonight. If there's any further questions.
Thanks, Paula. So then if we didn't need the 9th meeting, we'd move the 25th meeting to the 9th, correct? If we did not need the 9th meeting, the 25th meeting would be moved to the 9th, is that correct?
I think if we don't need the 9th meeting, we'd just cancel that meeting, would be my understanding, but maybe Mike can fill
I think the 9th is proposed as budget advisory only, and then the 25th is a regular council meeting which would be when we would actually pass the budget bylaw and establish the tax rates. So the 9th is there if we need it for budget focus, but the intent is to try and pass things at the 25th regular meeting of council,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's just an error with that. Yeah, there's only one scheduled meeting in January, which is the 9th, and then the next Perth East meeting of regular council is February 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
January 25th is a county council meeting.
Because Rome is that week.
Yeah, so it would be February 6th.
okay, that's clear. You have the one thing on this, Hugh, go ahead.
And 8.6.3, under the CEO on page 73, it shows a one-time of 17,000 and a service of 16,730 bucks. Would the 17,000 be the title search?
Yes, that's correct.
But would that not be just part of the regular budget because we do that every year? Like instead of the one time?
It's anticipated that that will come to an end once all those items are cleared up. Maybe CAO Gibbons can elaborate on that project.
Yeah, I think it's a fair comment, Deputy Mayor, that the addressing the unopened road issues and the other issues as it relates to, yeah, I think I would leave it at unopened roads. That number is not going to be sufficient enough to close that out, but that's the balance that remains as it relates to the reserve that was established for that project. So going forward, assuming there's still intent to try to address those unopened roads, yeah, it will take a different form in the budget going forward in 2025. But yeah, I think that's a good note or a good highlight that, yeah, the intent is to continue to make headway around those, but there are a number of unopened road allowances that we need to try to address and clean up going forward.
And then the service one, 16,730? Like I didn't see it when we have where you put them out where the service changes were.
Which page are you at, Hugh?
74.
74?
Yeah, pretty sure it's 74. 73, sorry. Like it shows the one time and the service changes, and for the CAO, it showed the 17,000 and the 16,730.
I'm just going to switch to the budget on my screen to look it up because you've got me stumped. Oh, that's the increase. There's an increase for legal fees. That was that service change I noted on the CAO
Oh,
of the increased legal fees and what's being covered from the legal fee reserve.
oh, okay.
So,
Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Paula. You can take a break now. Seeing no other further questions, I got the items 8.6.1 to 8.6.4 are set out in the operations PowerPoint for the November 14th, 2023 Township Perth East Budget Advisory Committee be received for information. Need a mover? Moved by Hugh, seconded by Rhonda. Any more questions on it? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Again, thanks again, Paula. Moving on to 8.7.1, Budget Division Public Works follow-up. I think this is Jake. Floor is yours, Jake.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is a continuation of Mike's report earlier in response to the budget vision follow-up. The topics, public works related, I've captured here in this report. The first was the post-work review of paving on line 33. What we have at this point is simply some traffic data. There was not a particular study done on it, and I'm not sure, Councillor McAlpine, if that was the intent or not. But as far as the information or data we have today, we did do traffic counts on it this past summer, and a comparison from 2019 to 2023 is fairly significant. You're looking at a traffic volume increase of more than double since paving went on. As far as speeds go, our average speed that was collected this year was 91 kilometers an hour. Unfortunately, as part of the 2019 study, there was no data collected on speeds itself. So there's no way of making a connection as to before and after asphalt, unfortunately. But that's what we have today. If the committee wishes, we could pursue a more detailed investigation of that, but that would require a third party to come in and do an investigation. I'll try and carry on. If there's any questions, just write them down.
Go ahead, if there's a question.
Do you want to just do them one at a time?
Yeah,
That's
go ahead.
probably the way to go.
No, thank you. I appreciate you looking at Public Works, looking at this. Was there any comments from our friends at the OPP? Because I encourage people to call them first, especially if there's any safety concerns. So I'm just wondering if there's any information came back from them.
I didn't touch base with the OPP on 33, but we can certainly do that and find out what sort of data they might have on it, and I can relay that back to you guys.
Thank you. Yep, go to the next one then, Jake.
Okay, the second topic there was the sidewalk in Sebastopol. We've had a number of requests over the past year regarding this. It is proposed in the capital budget, which you'll see in a few weeks. Estimated costs of $65,000. It would go up the north side of 29. And it would be a project that would be done in-house by our staff. So a good opportunity there for some of our guys to do some work. If there's any questions on that.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
So as a general question about sidewalks, I guess, so the process for sidewalks in, I won't say older subdivisions, but areas that don't have sidewalks, the budget principle, item K, would say that if it's not in the 5 and 10 year forecast, then those that ask for it would pay for it themselves. So when I tell someone in Gads Hill or Nithberg, you're welcome to get your neighbors together and, pay for it, then they say, oh no, it's fine and the way it is. But this seems like it was brought forward and we're going to just pay for it because people ask and ignore our budget principle, item K. So I'm not sure if this is for Mike or for Paula or everyone, but it just seems to go against what is in the policy. So if it comes forward in the future, I'll just tell them, just ask council and it'll be done.
Yep, who wants to go? Mike?
Yeah, I'll try to speak to that. I think Jake's comment is that it will be included in the budget for council consideration. Council's the approval authority, and the policy is council's policy as well. So certainly we've heard requests and we've included it for consideration, but the decision about whether it moves forward is a decision of council. I think I absolutely hear the comment, Councillor McMillan, in that we had a budget survey that had 68 respondents. If we did everything that 68 people who responded to it, there'd be a lot of other people who'd be quite upset, saying, well, just because I didn't participate in the survey doesn't mean that I don't pay taxes here and that I shouldn't be part of the decision-making process made by council. So I think, from a staff perspective, we get these budget visioning requests and we struggle in terms of what it is we're anticipated to do. Based on my direction to Public Works, they've given consideration to what the cost will look like. And there is, it is a budget item, but certainly we are not the decision maker in terms of the approval, and we respect that that's a council position.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
No, thanks. I appreciate the report on this one too. So north versus south side, And can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, several times we went out and reviewed the site. The reason for it being the north was mostly because of elevation changes with the driveways on the south side of the road. There would have been a lot more work involved. So that was more or less the decision to go with it on the north side of the road. There's less things to work around, and ultimately you're gonna be able to put a sidewalk in cheaper.
Sure. And just a general comment about traffic and volumes and types throughout the township. Would you say that areas maybe north of Vivian Line compared to south of Vivian Line, especially this particular road with the farm, transport trucks, the high volume of commuter traffic, would you say it's a higher risk to the township for some type of event that may pull us into that joint and severable liability envelope? That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I see you nodding, so that's good enough for me.
There's certainly lots of data to delve through there, and I should mention we've gathered a lot of data this past summer as it relates to traffic counts. That information will come to council before the end of the year, so you'll be able to actually review that data as well and reference it if you get calls on it. But we'll be putting a package together, kind of capturing some comments and of course all the data that has been collected this year. Speaking about the risk in particular to the township, that's something I wouldn't be able to talk to right now, something I can look into and perhaps address when we present the data.
Okay, next one.
Okay, on to Railway Street in Shakespeare. So a couple of segments that are currently gravel. Two of the really the remaining pieces in Shakespeare that have not been hard surfaced. We are proposing somewhat of not a common approach, which would be to use recycled asphalt and surface treat that asphalt at a much reduced cost as opposed to putting in hot mix. This also has been proposed in the capital budget for consideration. We're looking at a cost of about $11,000 to do those two segments of road there.
Okay.
There's no questions, I'll carry on. Public washroom in Shakespeare. This was looked into. The first possible site that made the most sense would have been the parking lot downtown. You're centrally located, and it would be able to cater to different people passing through and so on. But when we got looking into the numbers, you're looking at a fairly significant cost, not to mention your maintenance costs, which would be ongoing. You'd need regular visits from a maintenance person to keep the washroom up. The cost that I found to do a fairly simple two washroom, so it'll be 2 units and a utility room in between, you're in the area of $200,000, which is pretty substantial. But when you get thinking about what has to go in, you've got to have water, wastewater connections, and so on. It's a fairly substantial project. So at this point, we're not recommending to go forward until perhaps we could find some funding. But I think it would be good to continue to seek funding opportunities for something like that. So at this point, staff did not put it in the 2024 capital budget for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Next one, any questions?
Stop sign enhancements in Shakespeare, particularly in the area of Byron, Andrew, and William Shakespeare. I've brought a couple of these to council as it relates to putting in four-way stops. There is a guideline from the OTM which speaks to that. But prior to having a complete analysis, I think we need to collect some data on the movement of traffic through those sections. without having the data in front of me, it's hard to really make a case one way or the other. So we're going to collect data there. We now have our own radar device that we can do speeds as well as traffic counts, so we can get an idea of where traffic is coming and going. So that's something we'll be doing, and we can bring that to council at a later date.
Go ahead, Andrew.
No, again, I appreciate it, and it's pretty minor, but I'm hearing people are blowing through the stop sign, probably cutting the lights. I don't know, I guess maybe we could close the road there at the highway. It might solve all the problems, but I'm just wondering, is there any possibility, like when you're looking into the data, if you could please look at things like maybe larger signs or a blinking light or something, and to enhance, like something simple, but something to, in case, I'm just suggesting, I'm not sure what's in the.
Certainly, we can look at some traffic calming measures in there.
Perfect.
That might work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. And the last one? Oh, we have a question. Go ahead, Ron.
I'm not against looking into something, but everybody goes through stop signs everywhere. So when I'm driving my tractor today, it's pretty scary, I'll tell you. People are passing, they're not stopping, they're doing a whole lot of things. So it's everywhere, not just in the Village of Shakespeare.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
If I may, just to clarify, and maybe I refresh on why this was brought ahead. This is a safety issue involving children, pedestrians, and people on bicycles walking. So that's why they don't have the benefit of being in a vehicle to protect themselves against people driving through who probably don't live in the area. So that's why it was brought forward.
Okay, I will carry on to the final topic, which is yard waste disposal. This one, if you had a chance to review some of the comments in the survey, was one that I came across quite a bit. There's a few options that we could go with. One we did look at initially was having Blue Water collect and similar service to what they do today, but specifically compost or yard waste. That is something they're not equipped to do at this point. We spoke with Francis at BRA, and their trucks are basically now designed for the bins, so it's not an option at this point. Another option was looking into like a third party that might collect, but you're getting into some pretty significant costs, and the collection area would be something I would need direction on should council wish to go that route. But in the interim, staff have kind of come up with an idea which would cater to some of the responses in the budget survey, and in particular around the Milverton area. As it is today, the Southeast Hope landfill is in reasonable proximity to Shakespeare and other centers out that way. I think the biggest concern from residents is it's a long distance from this side of the township to the other. So we've proposed a couple of temporary yard waste depots at our public works shop. This allows us to avoid the whole ministry approval process at this point, which can get fairly costly. We've looked at, or we were proposing to do a one-day event, being a Saturday sometime in the spring, and again sometime in the fall as a starting point. And we'd run that similar timing to our landfill from 9 to 1, and see how the program goes, and we can look at potentially expanding that down the road should council choose. So we're looking at a cost of about $3,000 a day for that operation, which we would staff internally. Any questions? I'll try and answer those.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Go ahead, Rhonda.
So are you looking for people to bring their leaves like in a bag, and then the bag will go in the dumpster, or they have to be dumped out, or?
It doesn't have to be in bags per se. That would be ideal, but I'm not thinking exclusively bags. I know other places do that, but those are more catered to collection. we would set up some sort of a, not a bin, but a retaining wall or something of that nature at the Public Works yard where everything could be dumped, and then our crew would collect it, put it in a pickup or a dump truck, and transfer it down to our landfill. So that would be done with a loader, more than likely.
Yeah, I think you need more than a pickup truck.
Yeah, I'm thinking it would be tandems and triaxles, and a few of them.
Good stuff. I know, yeah, this has been on one of my requests for years. Go ahead, Hugh.
On the Minister of the Environment, I mean, this is just leaves and twigs, so like, what's the big deal?
Great question.
Well, no, like, it sounds like it's a fairly big deal, and it'd be an awful lot of money, time, and effort to get some kind of paper that you could throw some leaves or grass.
Yeah, anything permanent requires an ECA, which there's an entire process. You'd likely be looking at Class EA, going through that process. So there would be some paperwork to prepare in advance, and then your operating costs, you'd be looking at, you would have to be inspected by the ministry and so on. But in our thinking, should it be a success and council down the road wishes to go that route, we could certainly look at putting a price together for that in a more permanent scenario. But I thought for now, we would start by a temporary, see how it goes, and go from there.
Okay, anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I get this request sometimes in Shakespeare, and I just end up trying to find somebody to take the leaves away for them to the dump. But a lot of the feedback comes at, well, Tavistock in the back, they're near the old library, and the feed mill, they've got like bunker silos there, and people just dump whatever yard waste in there, right? Just, I'm not sure if it's even near a works building. It's kind of behind the IDA, so I don't know if you've got any connections that might help with planning or how they do it, possibly, at East Sora and Tavistock?
Yeah, I can certainly look into it as an option for residents in that direction. At the same time, in terms of proximity, you're fairly close to the landfill at that point anyway. But I can certainly reach out. I've had some conversations with North Perth about what they do, and it seems there's a lot of different approaches out there. But I'd be happy to speak with some more of our neighbors and find out what they do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Looks like we'll have a couple of those come back for consideration. I assume this will come back as another report. It's moving forward. Good stuff. Any other questions, comments? Great, thanks, Jake. We're going to motion here that Township Perth East Budget Advisory Committee receive the report entitled Budget Vision Public Works Follow-Up, dated November 14th, 2023, prepared by the Manager of Public Works and Parks for information. Need a mover? Moved by Bob, seconded by Hugh. No more questions. Any more questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks again, Jake. Excuse me, we have one correspondence, and that's from the GRCA with their draft budget. Paula went through that one. Yeah, obviously I sit on that as our rep, and we're showing there about 1.8% increase there. So I guess this is just for information, unless there's any questions on the correspondence. Seeing none, so the Township Perth East Budget Advisory Committee received the 2024 draft budget prepared by the Grand River Conservation Authority dated October 27th, 2023 for information. Need a mover? Hugh, seconded by Rhonda. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried for the correspondence. Think we're getting near the end. No closed session for this meeting. No business arising. Any notice of motion? Any new business? Seeing none. Any announcements? Seeing none. Last motion of the evening, the meeting of the Township of Perth East Budget Advisory Committee adjourn at, I'm seeing 8:29. The mover, Hugh, seconded by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Paula, Mike, everybody involved, staff.
Thanks,
Moving
Paul.
forward.